All right, people are concerned about corruption. They're concerned about the FBI, which was always corrupt, but I guess at least some people think now it's corrupt. They don't realize a lot of these Republicans that are starting to see the light. They don't realize that the FBI was always corrupt, and likewise the Democrats who used to think that the FBI was corrupt for many decades. Now they think the FBI is reformed somehow, some way. They don't say how or why. They just all of a sudden they say FBI, CIA. Oh, we like the FBI. We like the CIA. They're not corrupt anymore. Okay. So we have this corruption problem, and the issue is this. Unless people are held accountable, i.e. prosecuted for their malfeasance, the corruption will continue, and it will continue to get worse. And this is just a fact of life, and that is that until someone is held accountable for their actions, they continue to do the same things. They continue to do the same bad behavioral actions until they are held accountable. A child who does something wrong, steals cookies from the cookie jar when they're not supposed to. Well, if they're caught and nobody does anything about it, they just say, okay, look, he's not supposed to do that, but I'm not going to say anything to him. Then guess what? The child is going to do it again. It's a pretty simple concept. And a lot of the sociopaths we see, it's one of the most foundational aspects of criminal psychology is the fact that, a lot of these problems that criminals and sociopaths have can be traced to childhood because they weren't parented properly. They weren't, punished properly, either too hard or not enough. Okay, so you have all of these issues. So the same goes true with officials in the United States government, naturally. So, I was just watching Garland Nixon and he was talking about the Tim Canova affair in here in Florida in, I would say, probably 2014 or 2016 when Tim Canova ran in the primary, I believe, against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who is one of the most corrupt people out there. And, the election results raised some eyebrows. There were some impossible or highly unlikely sorts of numbers in the results as far as the demographics were concerned. So everybody has to check a box of you're male, you're black, maybe it asks you a couple questions in the ballot to get just demographic info, I suppose. And so they did it on the machines, and mostly it was the primary, I believe. And the results came back to the point where the makeup of Tim Canova's demographics, okay, as a percentage, this many percent black, this many percent white, this many percent Hispanic, and women and men, they were impossible demographics. They were literally impossible because they were all equal to each other. So apparently you had 1%, 5% black men, 5% white men, 5% black women, blah, 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 yada, 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 all the way down the list. 5% Asian men, 5% Asian women, which wouldn't be possible in Florida regardless, because there's just not too many Asians here. It was just all this, these numbers were impossible. So a federal judge, ordered the state of Florida Election Commission to produce the backup images on the machine so that Tim Canova can go and, count them and then, do an investigation, right? It happens. This happens all over the country all the time. So once that happened, though, the state of Florida said fuck it, and the state of Florida, Wanda Sykes in particular, the commissioner of the elections in Broward County, she said no dice, and they destroyed the evidence, basically, and no one was held accountable for that. So guess what happens a few years later, there's another weird thing going on in Broward County. I don't know if it was regarding the 2016 election or 2018, but then finally Wanda Sykes, I guess they had videos going around. I barely remember this incident, but I remember it. There was someone had a camera phone and was watching them unload boxes of ballots, and they tried to keep the whole thing secret. Even the Republicans, even the DeSantis administration seemed to try to, want to keep this kind of like on a down low, because both parties are involved in shenanigans as far as elections are concerned. It's happened to both parties where a federal judge has reversed the election. It's happened, all right? And I don't have anything to say about 2020 because, to me, I've said this before. I actually got a video deleted because I guess a bot didn't properly process what I was saying. I've maintained all along, regardless of what actually happened, the fact of the matter is the American people are certainly dumb enough to have elected someone like Joe Biden, okay? Certainly dumb enough. As a matter of fact, Joe Biden is the perfect president for the United States, a country full of people, the majority of which are historically illiterate, economically illiterate. They don't know how their own government works in the first place. So, hey, they don't know how their own government works. So the politicians love that because they can just say, hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Well, you can't do that in reality. It's not possible, right? You don't have the power to do that. I'm president. I'm going to lower taxes. I'm going to, there's always all sorts of shit, that they say they're going to do. And most of the time, it's something that not only requires Congress, right? But in that political environment, they'll say something like, I'm going to codify Roe v. Wade. Wait a minute, Congress is majority Republican. You're not codifying Roe v. Wade. But they'll say that, and idiots on the street, they'll believe it because they don't have a clue how the government works. They think the president can actually do that with the stroke of a pen. I'm going to lower taxes. Well, you got fucking, like Donald Trump, he actually managed to lower taxes. But imagine if he went around in 2016 and it's a Democrat Congress and he's saying, I'm going to lower taxes. And, people are like, well, what happens if, the Democrats keep the House? He's like, shh. Don't tell anybody about that, Oh, yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. It all requires an act of Congress. And even in situations where it's a political impossibility, these politicians will go around and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Okay, so there was that. The state of Florida, Wanda Sykes in particular, destroyed the backup images. Back to the Tim Canova affair. Just to recap, Wanda Sykes then goes on to work for the Broward County as the, commissioner for another few years. And finally, she's fired because she did something just as egregious, if not more egregious, because she was not held accountable for destroying evidence in the Tim Canova, election. So of course she's going to do it again. I would too. If I'm some corrupt politician and I do something corrupt, and there's no repercussions, I'm like, well, I guess that's the green light. We can just do corrupt shit, this corrupt thing. Why not? So, same thing with Russiagate. Guaranteed there's going to be another scheme. Now, they try to change it up to keep people on their toes, but look, they're using all these techniques that they used during Russiagate. They're using them right now, I'm sure, on, lower profile crimes. They're using the two-step rule, the two-hop rule to listen in on people's phone calls. They're going to the FISA judge with fraudulent, I'm sure they're going to the FISA judge as we speak, with fraudulent, with withholding exculpatory evidence. That's a guarantee. Prosecutors do that any chance they can get. I'm sure they're going to a FISA judge with manipulated documents as we speak, because when, Carter Page's FISA warrant was found to be tampered with by Kleinsmith, okay, who was an FBI lawyer, he got a slap on the wrist. He's already back as a lawyer. He lost his law license for 1 year, okay, and got it back. He didn't go to jail. He forged a piece of evidence that was used in a FISA application, which should be the highest standard of warrant you can possibly have. And he fucking forged it. And he got probation, and he got lost his law license, but the bar, because these bars, especially the one in DC, come on, think of it, the bar in DC, they got to be corrupt. They got him back on within a year or so. Okay, so that this is happening right now, but it's going to happen again. We're going to have another high-profile Russiagate. It has to happen because no one was held accountable. Comey wasn't held accountable. Peter Strzok is on MSNBC or something. Lisa Page has kept a low profile. She's the only one I kind of want to see once in a while. So this is going to happen again. The Steele dossier. Where's Christopher Steele now? Where's Mifsud now? They're just chilling. All right. And that means there are going to be some people to follow in their footsteps. They're going to say, hey, why don't we do that thing like they did back in 2016? Nobody got in trouble. What do we have to lose? We could try it. Of course, we're going to mix it up a little bit. We're going to do something a little different because people will be, too suspicious if we go the exact Russiagate route again, right? It's just like Iraq, weapons of mass destruction. Well, what happened after Iraq? Was anybody held accountable for bringing the country into a war that killed millions of people? Maybe, at least I would say. I do believe the figure, which is a figure that's out there, and it's a figure that is perhaps contested, but it's not considered illegitimate, that a million Iraqis died throughout the course of the Iraq war. Okay, so was anybody held accountable for that? No. What happens, and then there's Afghanistan, another thing, a little bit different. And what happens, several years later, after, while Iraq's still going on, oh, we got Libya, let's make something up about, Gaddafi, because we really want to fucking stick a sword up his ass. And then you have, of course, Syria, the great one, where they had 5 or 6 or 7 false flags. I mean, they must have set the world record for high-profile false flags in Syria. I mean, it was pretty stupendous. And I'm just looking at people around me, and I'm like, come on, guys. People would talk about Assad. No, Tulsi Gabbard, she went to talk to Assad, and Assad killed his own people. And these fucking boomers with their fucking cable news, they're the big problem. But no one's ever held accountable for this. So then what do we have now? See, they're going to keep pushing it. Now we have Ukraine. The United States is engaged in yet another proxy war, and a very dangerous proxy war. And until these people are held accountable, right? Until they're held accountable, they're going to keep pushing it and pushing it. And the end result is inevitable. It is nuclear war, because they're going to push it and push it and push it. And if we don't stop it here, it's going to turn into a nuclear war. And we're not holding people accountable yet. And I really have my doubts. That's why I'm sitting out this election, just sitting this fucking shit out. These Republicans, they haven't had to do anything. Okay, they're as responsible for the inflation as the Democrats. As a matter of fact, both parties are in lockstep on most important issues when it comes to, the budget, when it comes to foreign policy, okay? When it comes to a lot of things, surveillance, domestic surveillance, expansion of the national security state, expand, and then at least maintenance of the welfare state. There you have the Republicans saying, whenever they're campaigning, they're saying one thing. And this year, they're not even talking about lowering, Social Security benefits. Because, the boomers don't have enough of our future wealth yet. We need to make sure they get more of our future wealth. The boomers are not done stealing from their grandchildren yet, right? So we got to make sure that they get their Social Security, their Medicaid, that we don't have the money for that shit. But there's other things we could do. We can, really slash the Department of Education. We can slash all of these, a lot of these departments. And you don't ever see the Republicans doing that. You don't never see that. And they're full of shit. And anybody who thinks that something is going to fundamentally change in the next 2 years, given a Republican, victory, or 2 years down the road in the next presidential election, after that, they expect something to change. I highly doubt it. All right, especially at these next 2 years. The best thing that's going to come out of the next 2 years is probably gridlock, and that'll be a blessing probably, because if the last 2 years are any testament to this, you don't want the government really able to do too much. Look what they did in COVID. Look at the absolute madness they caused. They're engaging in fascism by using the private tech industry to censor free speech. They're literally engaging in fascism, and that's another thing. People don't understand what fascism is. They don't understand that the fascism is happening right now, that we're getting really close to being a totalitarian. If you look at 2020, totalitarianism comes from the bottom up. It comes from neighbors informing on each other, right? And lying to each other, a suspicion, right? Exercising power over one another. Hey, I'm with the regime. I'm the mouthpiece. I'm the strong arm of the regime. Now you better put on your mask. I'm the strong arm of the regime. Have you been vaccinated? I'm the strong arm of the regime. You should stay home. Don't say a word. We're going to shut down the economy, and it's going to work. And who cares if Thucydides told us, that 2,000 years ago they tried it, in Athens and it didn't work? Or who cares that many other instances of attempted lockdowns never worked? Okay, who cares? Who cares about all that? Those people were old. They're the past. We're the future. We only care about our feelings. Our feelings don't care about your facts. Okay, these are the people we're dealing with here. Okay. And the Republicans, the fucking boomers, the Hannity watching boomers are no better, okay? You start talking to them about foreign policy and it's like talking to a 4-year-old, okay? It's ridiculous, okay? It's just so much ignorance. They shouldn't talk. They shouldn't talk at all. Like, they should keep their mouth shut because they're absolutely clueless, okay? And we're at this point now, okay, where, the COVID assholes are coming out and saying, we want amnesty. That's what the Atlantic said. Oh, we need amnesty for COVID because, we did it, we were wrong and we destroyed people's lives, but we should just forget about it. We should just forget about it, move on. Don't be so, don't hold a grudge, we just shut down 30% of businesses for good, we just fired like millions of people and called it the great, the great resignation. So they tried to cover for the, all of the unemployment, the employment numbers going off the wall because they called it the great resignation. No, it wasn't. It was people getting fired for not getting a fucking vaccine. That didn't work. That didn't do what it's supposed to do, okay? Listen. Are these people going to be held accountable? What about the asshole in the hospital that would yell at me for not wearing a mask, or the asshole in the grocery store who would yell at me for not wearing a mask? I'm going to hold them accountable personally, okay? One of these days, okay? Maybe we should all do that. Maybe we should all do this. We should all work to hold these people accountable ourselves. I'm not saying do anything violent or anything like that. Just make sure they understand that they're fucking bozo, okay? That these people are fucking bozos. Remind them every day of their stupidity. Remind them every day, okay? They need to be reminded about it, because what these people want to do, their egos are so fragile, okay, that they can't handle the fact that not only that they were wrong, but they got totally duped. They can't handle that they're insecure people. Even arrogant people can be insecure, okay, in this way. So holding people accountable is important. But back to the original, this is a rant and a half. So back to the original premise here is that, people think that something's going to change. I'll believe something's going to change when people go to jail. When people go to jail for Russiagate, for what's good, the Ukraine now. Eventually, people are going to be found to have committed crimes and corrupt crimes in this situation as well. People need to go to jail for that. People need to go to jail for the COVID shit, for all the dumb COVID shit. People need to go to jail for, Wanda Sykes should be in fucking jail right now. Okay, she should be in jail, right? So this is just people, it's like George Carlin said, this is these elections, it just gives you the illusion of choice, okay? I'm optimistic. I'm not totally black-pilled in this respect. I mean, it's going to take a while, but if we can get more, I don't, the America First people, they're a start. But the problem with them is they're not good on foreign policy either. To them, it's China, China, China. And I don't want any part of that. So, if these people get off the China kick, maybe then I'll consider, talking to them. But it's, I actually care about foreign policy. But don't believe anything's going to change at all, okay, with this corrupt-ass government, with the FBI. FBI is out of control corrupt. CIA, forget about it. Forget about it. They've been corrupt since the 60s. J. Edgar Hoover said it himself. He said they were rogue. He said it. It was in somebody's memoir. Somebody wrote a memoir and said that J. Edgar Hoover sold him. Maybe it was McNamara's memoir. The McNamara memoir is full of goodies. J. Edgar Hoover said himself that he was afraid that the FBI was that the CIA was rogue back in the 60s. Okay, so they're fucking forget about it. So we're gonna have to send the military over there, just surround fucking the Langley place, and just if we are, that's the only way we're gonna stop the CIA. They're absolutely outrageous. They own fucking Google, basically. They run fucking Google. Look at Twitter. I guarantee you, there were CIA people working in Twitter directly. I guarantee you, we'll probably never know. It would be nice if Elon Musk could tell us that. What about Vijaya Gadde? She acts like a spook, None of these people are ever held accountable, though. See, this is the problem. The problem is that the ultimate problem is you're not holding people accountable. You didn't hold anybody accountable for JFK's assassination, except for the people who were close to uncovering the truth, like Andrew Bolden. You didn't hold anybody accountable for Iran-Contra. Oliver North, okay, the only guy that got caught, he ended up being a representative, right, and fucking working for Fox News. I mean, it's fucking ridiculous. So people wonder why this country is so corrupt. The reason it's so corrupt is because nobody is ever held accountable. Our government is full of corrupt rats, okay? And not to say there's lots of good people that work in the government. I know some of them, right? There's lots of good people. But the problem with them, okay, is that they're not brave. They're not willing to stick their neck out there. They just want that pension and they want to go home. But they don't realize that in the process of collecting this pension, they're contributing to the destruction of this country. Now, I'm one of those people. I tend to believe that, the American empire is doomed regardless. That doesn't mean that America has to be doomed, though. America can be reborn from the ashes of the imperial United States, which is crumbling as we speak, and which there's no way to stop it. But in order to have that rebirth, we need to hold people accountable. People need to go to jail, okay? I don't want anybody to go to jail as much as you do. I don't think it would be, it's not like I relish the thought of people going, I actually do relish the thought for some of them, but it's not like I relish the thought for most of them to go to jail. But people need to go to jail because otherwise, that's the whole purpose of the criminal justice system, is deterrence. And if we actually use that deterrence, we would do a lot for corruption. Now, you're never going to see, this is the thing, you're never going to deter a sociopath from doing bad things, from killing people, from being a sociopath like LBJ was. You're always going to have those types. But holding people accountable will prevent too many people from becoming corrupt in the government. It'll keep enough people honest that you're going to still have your occasional sociopath, your LBJ type, all right? But they're going to be a few and far between, and they're not going to have the help, But unfortunately, even back in the 60s, you had enough corruption to where they could pull off an assassination on Kennedy. One of the most promising presidents we ever had. This country would be different, so different, if Kennedy was not killed. I'm not saying he was perfect, but this country would be so different. And nobody was held accountable for that. No one. No one was held for the 2008 financial crisis. So guess what? You know what that means? Since nobody was held accountable for the 2008 financial crisis, that guarantees a much worse financial crisis in our future, probably our near future. It guarantees it, okay? And they did, there were some good. I guess I don't think any regulation is good, but there were some things that they did. But when they precluded the banks from getting involved in some of the derivatives, they just had all these shadow banks come in and fill the place, and the whole problem really got a lot worse. And so there goes another example. So I think I'm done there. This was Super Rant. I'm out.